Hello everybody, this is Josh Spicer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to another quick video of Darkest Dungeon Basics, covering all the classes and maybe one on the basic mechanic of the Hamlet as well. For this video, we're going to be taking a look at class number 4 you get from the start, the Plague Doctor. Plague Doctor has seen some buffs over early access and has become very powerful with the game being officially out. She is a back row. Essentially, her main task is going to be to cause blight and target enemy back rows with her abilities. Not effective in the front row, but she does have some very interesting skills nonetheless. But she is definitely a pure back row or third and fourth position support class. So let's take a look. Noxious Blast allows her to blight one enemy in first and second position. She has the highest blight causing damage skills out of all the classes in the game. At level 3, you can see she does 5 points for 3 rounds, effectively 15 points of damage. Because blight and bleed skills negate protection, they won't be mitigated by it. Means that this is just pure damage you can use, and makes these kinds of skills very effective against enemies with high protection, or even those with high dodge. Because as long as the base attack can connect, the blight chance will take over. But she is strongest against the back row, and that's where her next skill, Plague Grenade, comes in. Again, it's a third or fourth position skill, and it hits both third and fourth enemy positions with a blight attack of similar offense. It has less of a crit chance, as you can see, and a little less damage, but being able to blight both enemies in that back row can be amazing, especially when the back row is filled with very powerful glass cannon enemies. Again, another back row bonus, Blinding Gas stuns both enemies in the back position. Most stuns in the game can only target one enemy. Being able to stun both of them is very, very useful, especially in the later parts of the game where the back row is filled with stress-causing enemies or very powerful ones. Being able to take the back row out of the fight for a turn frees you up to attack the first 2 positions. Her sole melee ability is Incision. Doesn't have any damage debuff, and it causes bleed. It's a very weak bleed, by the way, but it does give her a little bit more functionality if the enemy is resistant to blight. However, there are better blight causing skills in the game than this. For her support skills, again, these are all ones that can be used back row and basically help the party. Battlefield Medicine, one of the few skills that can cure blight and bleed off of anyone. This can become very useful in the later dungeons when the blight and bleed effects from enemy skills goes higher and higher. It has a very small heal, which you probably won't be using all that much unless it's an emergency. Emboldening Vapors raises damage and speed on another character. Again, this is a support skill, really useful if you have some heavy frontline characters such as the Hellion, the Leper, or the Abomination. And allows her to basically still be useful if she can't target anyone else or if the enemy is resistant to her skills. Disorienting Blast shuffles an enemy and stuns them, and is mainly used to clear the corpses that are left behind. One of the few skills in the game that can actually do that. Again, can be useful for that one purpose, but she's still primarily as a support class for her other skills. She also features some really great camping abilities, which we'll look at now. Again, these 3 are always the same. First one, Experimental Vapors, heals a companion and increases the amount of heal they'll get for 4 combats. Leeches removes disease and blight while healing. This is a way to guarantee remove a disease off of a character without sending to the sanitarium for a week. Very powerful skill, especially if the character gets a lot of diseases or has a very nasty one that you don't want to spend the money or you don't have the money to recover. The Cure, this is for her, removes target disease and increases disease resistance. Pretty much self-explanatory. self-medicate, reduces stress, heals, and basically gives her more accuracy. Not a bad skill, but it is only used for her. So, what's good and bad? The Plague Doctor is a amazing support class, definitely the best at causing blight damage, which means against the undead and against the Cove enemies, she is very useful to have. Battlefield Medicine will almost be always on for her if you're dealing with enemies who can cause blight and bleed damage. As being one of the few skills again that can cure that, gives her a lot of, makes her very valuable for those situations. Having a 2-position stunning ability is always great, and it becomes more and more important as you get later in. Her main weakness, however, is that because most of her skills are debuff, or I'm sorry, they're skills that can be resisted, it does limit what she can do based on who she's fighting. For example, in the Weld, where the enemies are very highly blight resistant, these 2 skills have a very low chance of doing almost anything against the majority of the enemies. While Incision is nice, it's not going to do as much bleed damage as some of the other classes. Her Emboldening Vapors is an interesting skill. It's one that I don't use, primarily because I keep her in the back row and basically make her as my dedicated blight and stunner. But if you want to use this, you make sure to have a high damage causing front row person. Again, pretty much any class who can be in position 1 or 2. Although you could possibly use this on the Arbalest, who is a glass cannon back row, which we'll cover in a later video. But the Plague Doctor is a decent class. You do have to plan where you're going to take her to get the most effect, but she has decent skills that can be used in almost any situation. Again, best when dealing with enemies who are weak against blight. So that would be in the Weld, in the Cove, in the Ruins, and I believe the Weld and the Warrens, they are resistant there. So half of them she's really good in, the other half, you're going to probably want to use her support skills more. So that would be Blinding Gas, Battlefield Medicine, Emboldening Vapors, and then either Incision or Disorienting Blast. Building a party around her, again, it depends on where you're taking her and what skills you're going to have on. If she's going to be just pure blight, then you want other party members to be healing and providing defense. She is on the weaker side in terms of health at this level, but she can get some decent dodge from her armor. I have Evasive, which helps out even more. Trinkets, again, if you're going to build her around her blight, then you definitely want to take trinkets that raise her blight skill chance, such as the Blight Amulet. There's medicinal herbs or poison herbs, and there's one other one. Because the higher her blight chance is, the greater it will be against the enemy's blight resist, giving her a chance to use it. If you get it high enough, she can even blight enemies who are normally resistant to it, such as the ones in the Warrens and the Weld. Healing, you're pretty much, if you have to rely on her as a healer, you're in very big trouble. Her Battlefield Medicine just doesn't do enough for it to work. You're going to primarily use that for the blight and bleed cures. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say about her. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It will help out a lot. And be sure to check out the next video, as well as my series of live plays of the Darkest Dungeon on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel. Thanks again, and next time we're going to get into some of these more varied classes that you'll have a chance at getting through the stagecoach at the start of each new week. But that's going to be for next time. Take care, everybody.